I'm now going to call upon our final speaker, who's Cory Sine. He's a writer, photographer, and an avid rock climber who lives in Squamish, British Columbia. He studied sociology and philosophy at the University of British Columbia and University of Toronto, and his specialization is development and underdevelopment and globalization. He's written 6 articles to date for Dialogue with Diversity and hopes to continue to contribute on an ongoing basis.
Thank you. And thank you very much to Dialogues with Diversity for having me here. It's quite a new experience for me, but I'm very honored to have been invited. As we take the air we breathe, so we take our freedom and peace. They are unnoticed, taken for granted, and yet fundamental to the very survival of our citizenship. We know nothing but their presence and cannot accurately imagine a life without them. To be deprived of these elements, to be strangled to death over the years by state oppression and violence, is a level of despair outside our range of experience. As Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote, "One who is warm can never understand one who is cold." What to say of those citizens of the Arab world who have known nothing but oppression for their entire lives? Whether it was in the streets, from the police and the army, or in the dankness of a cell in the dungeons of an intelligence agency, violence was a menace that the citizenry were very much familiar with. Freedom and peace are woven into Arabic cultures through the intricacies of Islam and its holy texts. Salam, the one who bestows peace, is one of the names of God. It is a term present in a traditional greeting and at the conclusion of prayers, as a reminder of the importance of peace. For those who run the tyrannies, the message is direct in the Holy Quran. For the oppressors there are no helpers, Baqarah, verse 270. They are the dwellers of hell, Ma'idah, verse 29. Muslims are indeed compelled to resist violence, as the Prophet Muhammad said, "If people see a person oppressing others, and do not try to stop him from his aggression, then God will punish them all for not doing so." Tirmidhi. For those living with the dictatorship, true democratic freedom was a murky concept, barely perceived out of an unseen future. When the people of the Arab world rose up, it represented a regional leap of faith. What has happened since can be described as a trans-regional awakening of a collective Arab consciousness. Up until now, the West's relationship with the Arab world has been one marked by global corporatism and the contracting of state violence. The West has chosen to support or simply install the leaders and governments that they aim to do business with. Change, when it came, was almost without exception violent. The state-sanctioned violence of one administration would be overturned only to see the new power brokers install more institutional violence. The prisoners of the king would be freed, only to be replaced with the prisoners of the junta. Foreign interests would openly pay for state violence to guard their resources and gain more. The corporate colonial powers and their multinational corporations have had a heavy hand in determining the final say, whether the issue was labor, resource management, or political conditions. Most of the time, corrupt leaders, absolute monarchies, and local potentates were plied with bribes and favors, such as military support, to ensure foreign control over important resources, the largest, of course, being oil and petroleum. A hallmark we see of these revolutions, both those peaceful and violent, has been the accessing and transfer of data through sites and networks on the internet. As a tool for mobilization, this method proved invaluable. The besieged leaders acted quickly to block all access to internet ports, just as they grasped the dimension and power of this medium. Regardless, cell phone videos and pictures, along with sound bites, always managed to be smuggled out to find the global audience. When the young masses, after the fall of the Mubarak regime, flooded Tahrir Square in Cairo to celebrate, it is worth noting that one of the most enduring images of the night was the clustering of glowing cell phone screens held above the fray by their owners to capture the minutes with their digital cameras and video. The spray-painted rocky chunks of the Berlin Wall that were distributed after its fall have been replaced with the digital immortality of YouTube. The world was given the chance to see the revolutions, unfiltered by government propaganda and slanted reporting. It is events such as these that have led to a new dawn of era consciousness which threatens the entire system of the politics of violence, the socioeconomic inequalities created through neo-colonial and neoliberal relationships with the developed world. Freedom, its civil safeguards, and a durable peace are all built, brick by brick, letter by letter, over time. The recognition of the validity of certain social groups and actors to both exist and affect change within a new civil society is paramount to that same society levels of liberty and nonviolence. However nonviolent the process, the emerging new state, in its infancy, is filled with dichotomies of competing social movements and individuals. The peaceful resolution to these conflicts is a second central tenet to the establishment of a strong, united, and fair society. There is hope, however, as, mired in the maelstrom of violence and oppression, nonviolent resistance has shown itself to be highly effective. In February of this year, peaceful democracy activists gathered in Freedom Square in Taiz, Yemen's second largest city. Days before it had been the scene of bloody violence as government troops massacred activists. As the days went by, more and more Yemenis joined in the square and staged a massive sit-in. Shortly, the demonstration had paralyzed the city, and those in attendance numbered in the tens of thousands. Sit-ins began to appear all over Yemen. In the words of Khalid al-Anizi, one of the leaders of the uprising, "The most important thing for us is not getting rid of Ali Abdullah Saleh, or even building a civil state. It is changing the mentality of violence." The Arab world is changing while the Western leaders frantically vie to purchase the loyalty of new governments. Journalists in the West have focused largely on what they see as the chaos and violence arising out of fallen regimes. CNN commentators have stated again and again, that, love him or hate him, Hosni Mubarak was a friend to the United States who kept the peace with Israel. Statements like this reinforce the neocolonial belief that the natives are inherently unable to solve problems, run governments, and respect nonviolence unless cowed by a strong man or managed by Western powers. This worry of regional chaos and violence, should the people take over the reins of power, is all the more terribly ironic and cruel when one sees the vicious extent of violence being used against democracy activists by these so-called necessary strongmen and friends of the West. Perhaps the key to understanding and predicting trends in this remarkable phenomenon lies in grasping the nature of the nonviolent awakening itself. It is a paradigm shift, affecting all aspects of life in a region that has seen little but stagnation, corruption, and multinational colonialism for 50 or 60 years. The West is often perplexed, both at the speed of the awakening and the fierce dedication of those in its ranks. A hint as to these attributes is written in the Holy Quran. O you who believe, stand out firmly for God as just witnesses, and let not the animosity of others make you avoid justice. Be just, that is nearer to piety. Maida, verse 8. The corruption and brutality of the regimes were accepted naturally by their subjects for many years. The West has never formally recognized the existence of people trying to eke out a living as best they could under the heels of their respective leaders. In short, since the inception of these regimes, their subjects have been living through the pains of massive injustice. The revolutionaries are buoyed along by their righteousness, and perhaps even more importantly, their sheer excitement and relief at the possibility of future lives whose nature and paths they could not imagine mere months ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And